Hello, I'm going to talk to you today about the abolition of UK GAAP, but let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Christopher Nobes. I'm a Professor of Accounting at Royal Holloway College in the University of London. Perhaps more relevant is the fact that I was a member of the board of the International Accounting Standards Committee for 8 years until 2001. So our topic is the abolition of UK GAAP and its replacement, which will be a special new version of international standards. The context is that you will know that certain accounting must be done using international standards. In particular, the consolidated statements of listed companies must use international standards since 2005. However, other sorts of accounting are still allowed to use UK GAAP. So, for example, there are many unlisted companies, and even inside a big listed group such as GlaxoSmithKline, there might be hundreds of subsidiaries in the UK. For this other sort of accounting then, which is most accounting, there's a choice between international standards and UK GAAP. This is according to the Companies Act. It turns out that in 2011 still, nearly all companies choose UK GAAP. They're used to it, it's easier, there are fewer disclosures and that sort of reason. However, there are some problems with UK GAAP. About 10 of the UK standards are exact copies of international standards, so they're fairly new and fairly modern. But all the remaining standards, and there are about another 30, are in some cases very old, over 30 years old, these SSAPs you remember learning. And then there's some FRSs, some of which are substantially different from international standards, some of which are rather similar, but there are many details that are different. So we have a ramshackle mixture of standards that can be added together and called UK GAAP. The British Accounting Standards Board has decided that we can't really continue in this way for much longer. And they've proposed in an exposure draft in 2010 a major change then to solve this problem. We're going to abolish the present UK GAAP. Now luckily, in 2009, the International Accounting Standards Board issued a new standard designed especially for unlisted companies. And this standard has far fewer disclosure requirements than international standards. It removes some of the options to make the book simpler, and it makes a series of other simplifications. This standard is called IFRS for SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, though that's not really a very good title because it's about companies of any size that are unlisted. So it's designed then for just the sort of thing that the present UK GAAP serves. There is sadly a bit of a problem. One or two of the details of the IFRS for SMEs are illegal. That is, they're inconsistent with the Companies Act. And so you think, well, why can't we change the Companies Act then? And the answer is because the Companies Act comes from the EU and it can't be changed for these particular details. So we have a new document from the IASB which looks about right but is illegal. The solution is that the IASB has proposed a special new British version of the IFRS for SMEs called the FRSME, Financial Reporting Standard for Medium-Sized Enterprises. And this special new version is the main replacement for UK GAAP. From 2013 is the proposal. That might sound a little far away, but remember that we're required to produce a set of financial statements for 1 year before as comparatives, so we'll have to start using the new ideas reasonably soon. So now's a good time to learn about it and decide exactly which choices you're going to make for financial reporting. There's another interesting complication, which is that supposing we are in a large group like GlaxoSmithKline and our consolidated statements are under IFRS, they're required to be. If we choose to use the new standard that's proposed for our subsidiaries or even for our parent, we will get simpler accounting and fewer disclosures. On the other hand, there's still rather a lot of disclosures, and so it would be quite useful not to have to use full-scale IFRS. But if we use the FRSME, we shall find that it's not exactly the same as IFRS because the measurement rules are in some cases different because there are simplifications. So, if we choose to use full-scale IFRS in our subsidiaries, we shall get a lot of disclosures. If we choose to use the FRSME in our subsidiaries, we shall get slightly different measurement rules so that it won't all exactly add up without some consolidation adjustments. The solution the IASB suggests, the ASB also now decides is the right answer, is to produce a special version of full-scale IFRS just for the UK, but with reduced disclosures. So this isn't the new FRSME, this is full-scale IFRS in terms of all the measurements and the detailed instructions, except for considerably reduced disclosures. And then, just to continue the complications, the ASBs decided that it might be quite useful for subsidiaries to have a special version of the FRSME, also with reduced disclosures. So we've now got 4 versions of UK GAAP. Just before I repeat what they are, we now have to admit actually there's a 5th. Some of you will know that for several years we've had something called the Financial Reporting Standard for Smaller Enterprises. This is for small companies, for example, under 50 employees. This is a version of UK GAAP, and the ASB intends to allow those very small companies to continue using that FRSME, as it's called an abbreviation. So there will be 5 versions of UK GAAP. This is more complicated than anywhere else in the world. To repeat what they are, consolidated statements of listed companies must use full-scale IFRS. Then there's a special British version of that with reduced disclosures, only allowed for subsidiaries. Then there's a special British version of the SME standard, which will be allowed for most types of accounting in the UK. Then there's a special version of that with reduced disclosures. Then there's the FRSME, which continues at least for the moment. So this is very complicated, and the first stage is that you will have to look at your company and your group and decide which standards to be using for various types of financial reporting. But a lot of us will be using the ASB's new version of the IFRS for SMEs, and that's mainly what the course is about. So this can serve as an advertisement for the course on that subject that I will be giving for Quorum during 2011 and 2012. I look forward to seeing you at such an event. Thanks for your attention.